You're born in 1290s Bristol. Your childhood tastes like honey cakes your mother sells at market. Your father's a dyer, hands permanently stained indigo blue. You grow up learning to read a little, write your name, and bargain with merchants. You watch your mother negotiate prices with sharp wit, and your father mix dyes with the precision of an alchemist. At 16, you're prettier than you need to be, and everyone says you'll make a good match. Your mother begins teaching you the skills you'll need as a wife, how to manage household accounts, how to preserve food for winter, how to read a man's character by watching how he treats servants. She tells you that marriage is a business arrangement. But if you're lucky, affection grows alongside duty. You think you're lucky when you meet Thomas. He's a wool merchant's apprentice with coin in his pocket and promises on his lips. 22 years old, well-dressed, with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing he has prospects. He courts you properly at first, walks by the river where he tells you about the merchant business he'll inherit. Flowers left at your door with notes written in surprisingly good hand. Gifts of ribbon, and once, daringly, a small silver ring he says is a promise of things to come. Your parents approve. His master approves. Your mother starts collecting linens for your future household. Your father negotiates bride price with Thomas's master, discussing your dowry of 20 marks, a respectable sum that represents years of your family's savings. Wedding talks begin in earnest. You embroider a wedding shift by candlelight, dreaming of the life ahead. Thomas talks about the house you'll live in, the shop you'll help him run, the children you'll raise. He makes love to you one night by the river, whispering that you're already his wife in God's eyes, that the ceremony is just a formality. You believe him? Why wouldn't you? The banns are nearly posted. Then Thomas gets a better offer, a merchant's daughter from London with a dowry of 60 marks and connections to the Hanseatic League, 3 times what your father could provide. A pathway to wealth that your honey cakes and dyer's daughter status could never match. Within a month, he's gone. No explanation, no apology, no returning the small promises he extracted from you by the river. Just gone. His master sends a curt message to your father. The arrangement is dissolved. Young Thomas has made a more suitable match. Your father's face goes gray when he reads it. Your mother weeps. The 20 marks set aside for your dowry suddenly looks like a fortune wasted on a daughter who's now compromised. You discover you're pregnant 2 weeks later. The signs are unmistakable. Your monthly courses don't come. Your breasts ache. You wake each morning and vomit into the chamber pot. For a week, you tell yourself it's just illness, bad fish, summer fever, anything but the truth that's growing in your belly. You try to hide it. Binding your belly with strips of linen until your ribs ache. Wearing loose kirtles that belong to your grandmother. Avoiding your mother's knowing eyes. Eating less so there's less to show. But at 4 months, there's no hiding anymore. Your mother finds you retching behind the shop one morning and sees the truth written on your swelling body. She doesn't say a word, just stares at you with a look that's half pity, half horror. That evening, she tells your father. Your father doesn't shout. That would be kinder. Shouting would mean anger, and anger would mean he still sees you as his daughter worth defending. Instead, he goes quiet, face gray as ash, hands trembling as he sets down his cup of ale. The silence stretches until you can't bear it. He asks one question, who? You tell him everything about Thomas, about the promises of marriage, about the wedding talks everyone witnessed, about the ring he gave you, the banns that were nearly posted, the master who approved the match. You explain that you believed you were already betrothed in the eyes of God, that Thomas had promised the ceremony was merely a formality. Your father listens without expression. When you finish, he stands and leaves the room. He sends word to Thomas's master in London, a carefully worded letter invoking church law, contract law, betrothal rights. He includes testimony from neighbors who witnessed the courtship. He mentions the ring, the promises, the dowry negotiations. The response comes back within a fortnight. Thomas denies everything, says you're a liar, a whore looking to trap a respectable man with false claims. The ring, a trinket you probably bought yourself. The promises, fantasies of a desperate girl. The courtship, merely the polite attention any Christian man might show a neighbor's daughter. His master backs his story completely. So does the merchant's daughter's family. They have 60 marks invested in believing Thomas. The priest who was meant to marry you suddenly Can't quite remember the details of the arrangement. Your father sends more letters, finds witnesses, presents the ring. Thomas's new family hires a lawyer. They're wealthy enough for that. The church court examines the case and rules that without written contract or posted bans, no formal betrothal existed. The ring is deemed a gift, not a promise. The witnesses are dismissed as unreliable. What did they actually hear? Promises are just words, after all. No one believes you. Your father returns from the church court with his shoulders bent like an old man's. He spent 4 marks on the case, money the family can't afford to lose, and lost anyway. That night, he gives you one choice. Confess your sin publicly, do penance, and maybe he'll let you stay and salvage what reputation the family has left. Or leave now with nothing and never come back, sparing them the continued shame of housing a whore under their roof. You choose penance, you're 17 and terrified, and you have nowhere else to go. The following Sunday, the priest makes you stand before the entire congregation in a white sheet, barefoot, hair unbound like a madwoman or a prostitute. The church is packed. Word has spread, and public penance draws crowds like a hanging. You're forced to confess your fornication while the town watches, every detail. How you tempted Thomas, how you gave yourself outside of marriage, how you sinned against God and decency. The priest doesn't mention Thomas's promises, doesn't mention the dowry negotiations or the nearly posted bans. In this version of events, you're a temptress who seduced an innocent man. Women you've known since childhood whisper behind their hands. You catch fragments. Always knew she was loose, too pretty for her own good. Poor parents, what shame. Men smirk and elbow each other. You know what they're thinking. You can see it in their eyes. If you did it once, you'll do it again. You're available now. Spoiled goods. Children stare with wide eyes, learning the lesson their parents want them to learn. This is what happens to girls who forget their place. The priest assigns your punishment. You'll walk through the market every Sunday for 6 weeks wearing the white sheet of shame, barefoot regardless of weather, carrying a candle of penance while he proclaims your sin to anyone who will listen. Public humiliation, they call it. Purification through shame. As if degradation could somehow restore what's been taken. The first Sunday, you walk through the market with your head down, tears streaming silently. People you've known your entire life turn away. Mothers pull their children close as you pass, as if sin were contagious. By the second week, boys throw mud at you, clumps of street filth that splatter against your white sheet, staining it brown. Their fathers watch and don't intervene. One man laughs. By the third week, someone spits at you. The warm saliva hits your cheek and you keep walking, because stopping would only prolong the ordeal. By the fourth, someone throws a rock. It catches you above the ear, opening your scalp. Blood runs down your neck, soaking into the white sheet. The priest says it's God's judgment manifesting physically. Your mother stops coming to market. By the 6th week, you're so numb you barely feel the jeers. You walk through the crowd like a ghost, candle trembling in your hand, counting the minutes until you can return to the storage room where you're no longer allowed to sleep in the family quarters. You give birth alone in your father's storage room on a freezing January night. Your mother holds your hand while refusing to look at you. She brings clean rags and hot water, her face set in rigid disapproval even as she helps you through the pain. The labor lasts 14 hours. You scream until your voice breaks. Your mother tells you to be quiet. The neighbors don't need to hear your shame echoing through the streets. The baby's a girl, tiny, red-faced, perfect. She has your nose, and you think Thomas's eyes. When she takes her first breath and wails, your heart breaks open with a love so fierce it hurts worse than the labor. You want to name her Margaret, after your grandmother who taught you to read. Your father won't allow it. She doesn't deserve a family name. She's a bastard, and bastards don't get the dignity of family legacy. You call her Margaret anyway, but only in whispers when no one else can hear. Your father takes her 3 days later. You're still bleeding, still weak, breasts swollen and leaking milk. He comes into the storage room with that same gray, closed expression. The baby goes to the church, he says. They have a place for such children. You beg, you plead, you promise you'll work harder, eat less, take up no space, you'll raise her quietly, no one will even know she's there. He doesn't argue, just takes her from your arms while you're too weak to fight. Margaret cries as she's carried away, and the sound carves something out of your chest that will never grow back. You never see her again. You ask once. Your father tells you she was placed with a monastery that takes in foundlings. He doesn't know which one, or he does know and won't say. You'll never find out which. For weeks afterward, your milk comes in with no baby to feed. Your breasts ache and leak, and you have to bind them tight while your body grieves what your arms cannot hold. You think the worst is over. You've done your penance, lost your daughter, survived. Surely now you can begin to rebuild some semblance of a life. You're wrong. This is where you learn what fallen woman really means. Not the sin itself, everyone sins, but the permanent mark it leaves, the social death that follows confession. Your father keeps you on, but everything changes. You're no longer allowed in the shop where customers might see you. You work in the back, dyeing fabrics in huge stinking vats, hauling water from the well until your shoulders scream, doing the work servants do. He doesn't introduce you to visitors anymore. When customers ask about his children, he mentions your brothers, Jeffrey, who's learning the trade, William, who's apprenticed to a goldsmith, never you. You become the family secret. The daughter who exists but doesn't exist. You try to find other work. Surely someone needs help. You're literate, skilled with numbers, good with your hands. You try the baker's wife first. You've known her since childhood. She won't hire you. Don't want that sort around my boys, she says, not unkindly but firmly, as if she's protecting them from contagion. You understand. You do understand. That's the worst part. The weaver turns you away at the door, doesn't even let you finish asking, just shakes his head and closes the door. The tavern keeper laughs in your face. I run a respectable establishment, can't have customers thinking we're that kind of place. The chandler's wife looks at you with pity and says her husband would never allow it. The butcher doesn't respond at all. You try every shop, every merchant, every household that might need an extra pair of hands. The answer is always no. Sometimes polite, sometimes cruel, but always no. The only offers you get are from men, and none of them are offering marriage. A tanner's son corners you in an alley one evening as you're walking home from the well. He's been drinking. You can smell the ale on his breath before he gets close. Heard you're generous with your favors, he slurs, grabbing your wrist hard enough to bruise. His other hand reaches for your skirts. You fight him off, landing an elbow in his gut that doubles him over. You run before he can recover. The next day, he's telling everyone that you tried to seduce him in that alley, that you offered yourself for coin and got angry when he refused, that you're working as a whore now, approaching respectable men in the streets. The town believes him. Of course they do. You're the proven sinner. He's a merchant's son with no history of misconduct. Your father hears the rumors and doesn't even ask for your side, just looks at you with disgust and moves your sleeping pallet further from the family quarters. More men start approaching you. They've heard you're available. They've heard you need money. They make offers that make your skin crawl, and when you refuse, they spread more rumors. She's doing it anyway, they say. Might as well be honest about it. Probably has been all along. Thomas wasn't the first, just the one who got her caught. You're 19 when your father dies, suddenly, of a bad heart while lifting a heavy bolt of cloth. One moment he's working, the next he's on the ground, and by evening he's gone. Your brothers inherit everything. They're married now. Jeffrey to a mercer's daughter, William to a vintner's niece. Respectable wives from respectable families who want nothing to do with their husband's shameful sister. The will is, read, your name isn't mentioned, not even to be explicitly excluded. You're simply absent, as if you never existed. Your eldest brother, Jeffrey, pulls you aside after the funeral. He's not cruel, just practical. Cold arithmetic dressed as kindness. You can stay, he says, working as an unpaid servant in what used to be your home. You'll have a pallet by the kitchen fire, meals from the servant's pot, and the opportunity to work off your keep through endless labor. His wife has already made it clear you'll sleep separately from the household and won't eat at the family table. Or you can leave with 5 shillings and his prayers for your redemption. It's not really a choice. It's an expulsion dressed as generosity. 5 shillings is enough to survive for perhaps 2 months if you're extremely careful. After that, you'll starve or find another option. You take the coins. Pride is a luxury you can't afford, but you have just enough left to refuse a lifetime of servitude in your childhood home. Jeffrey hands you the money without meeting your eyes. I hope you find peace, he says, and you think he might actually mean it, but not enough to actually help you find it. You leave the house where you were born with everything you own wrapped in a bundle: 2 shifts, a cloak, a wooden comb, and 5 silver shillings that represent the entirety of your inheritance. With nowhere else to go, you rent a corner of a room from a widow named Agnes, who asks no questions because she needs the coin more than she needs respectability. The room is tiny, dark, and damp. You share it with 2 other women, a seamstress with consumption and a laundress with a hair lip. All of you are women the world has no use for. You try to find work, any work. You offer to clean houses. The wives look at your young face and refuse. They don't want you anywhere near their husbands. You offer to help at market stalls. The merchants have heard the stories. Too risky, they say. You try to get piecework sewing. The guild controls it tightly, and fallen women aren't welcome. But the word has spread like plague. Fallen woman, whore, sinner. The guilds won't accept you. They have reputations to protect. The merchants won't hire you. Customers might object. The respectable households won't let you through the door. What would the neighbors think? The church offers you charity, but only if you'll enter a Magdalene house. The priest explains it kindly. It's a place for reformed prostitutes where you'd spend your life doing penance in silence, scrubbing floors, and weaving hair shirts to earn your salvation. Never mind that you were never a prostitute. The category has expanded to include you anyway. You refuse. You've already done penance. 6 weeks of public humiliation, the loss of your daughter, years of shame. You won't spend the rest of your life imprisoned for Thomas's lies. That's when you understand the trap. There are only 2 options for women like you in medieval towns: perpetual penance in a Magdalene house or actual prostitution. Society has decided what you are. Now it's just waiting for you to accept it. You hold out for 8 months, living on the edge of starvation. You do piecework sewing when you can get it, earning pennies per shirt. You scrub steps for households that won't hire you fully, but will pay for anonymous labor. You go hungry more often than not, telling yourself the gnawing emptiness is just discipline. You watch your shoes fall apart, the leather splitting and separating, and have no coin to replace them. Then winter comes. Bristol winters are brutal near the docks. Wind cuts through your threadbare cloak like knives. The room you share is freezing. Agnes can't afford enough firewood for warmth, only enough for cooking. The widow raises your rent. Costs go up in winter, she says apologetically. I'm sorry, dear. The piecework dries up completely. No one needs shirts in winter. They need warm cloaks, and that work goes to guild members only. You haven't eaten in 3 days when a man approaches you near the town well, middle-aged, well-dressed, with the look of a merchant who travels frequently. He's seen you around, he says, knows you're struggling. He could help. The price is clear even before he names it. You tell him no. You're not a whore, you say, voice shaking with cold and hunger and desperation. You made one mistake with a man who promised marriage. One mistake. That doesn't make you what he thinks you are. He shrugs, not unkindly. Your choice, girl. But you'll be back. They always come back. The world doesn't leave women like you much choice. He walks away, and you hate him for being right. 2 weeks later, you're desperate enough to accept. Not from him, you have that much pride left, but from a merchant passing through town, someone who doesn't know your story and doesn't care. He pays you 4 pence, enough for a week's rent and a loaf of bread and a bit of cheese. You throw up afterward, crouched in an alley while your body rejects what your mind had to accept. But you eat the bread. This is how it starts. Not because you're wicked, not because you're immoral, not because you ever wanted this, but because a society that destroys women for one mistake then offers them only 2 choices: starve or confirm everything they accused you of being. You tell yourself it's temporary, just until you save enough to leave Bristol. Start fresh somewhere new, where no one knows your story, but word spreads faster than you can save. Bristol is a port town, and sailors talk. Within a month, everyone knows. The widow, Agnes, evicts you, counting the rent coins you've paid her without a trace of irony. I run a Christian household, she sniffs. You end up in the stews near the docks, the official brothel district where the town's morality conveniently looks the other way because it's taxable income and keeps the sailors from bothering respectable women. It's regulated by the Bailiff, who collects taxes from your earnings, 2 pence per week, while the church condemns you from the pulpit every Sunday. The same priest who forced you to do public penance now thunders about the whores of Babylon, and you know he means you. The brothel keeper is a woman named Marjorie, fat and practical, who's been running this place for 20 years. She explains the rules. You give her half your earnings, you see the barber surgeon monthly for examinations, you don't steal from customers, and you don't make trouble. The other women here have stories like yours. Sarah was raped by her employer and blamed for tempting him. She was 14. She's 20 now and her eyes are dead. Joan's husband died and left her with debts she couldn't pay. The creditors took everything, house, shop, even her clothes. This was the only option left. Margaret, not your Margaret, but another one, was caught in adultery. Her lover was a priest, so he faced no punishment at all. She was branded on the cheek with a hot iron and expelled from her village. Anne was a servant who fought off her master's advances. He accused her of theft and had her publicly whipped. No one would hire her after. Society didn't make you whores. It named you whores first, then ensured you had no other choice but to become what you'd been called. You're 23 when the sickness starts. At first, it's just fatigue, bone deep and unshakable. Then sores appear that won't heal, oozing and painful. Then fever that comes and goes like tide, leaving you shaking and drenched in sweat. The other women know what it means before you do. They've seen it before, the pox, the French disease, the sickness that comes from men and kills women, probably from the sailor who paid extra to skip the sheep bladder precaution you usually insist on. He'd been insistent, and you'd been behind on rent, and Marjorie had been making threatening noises about finding girls who earned their keep. There's no treatment, no cure. The barber surgeon offers mercury ointments that burn your skin and don't stop the disease. The wise woman sells you herbs that do nothing but empty your purse, just slow rot, while you keep working because even dying costs money. The bailiff starts avoiding your corner. Customers dwindle as the sores spread and your face breaks out in lesions. You're moved to the cheaper rooms at the back of the brothel, the ones that smell of damp and old blood, where the desperate men go who can't afford better. Your hair falls out in clumps, your teeth loosen, your bones ache like they're rotting from the inside. You're 25 when you can't work anymore, too sick, too weak, too visibly diseased. The customers stop coming entirely. Even the desperate ones have standards. Marjorie evicts you with the same casual cruelty Agnes once showed. Bad for business, she says, like your spoiled meat that needs clearing out before it contaminates the rest. You understand. You do understand. That's still the worst part. You end up in a charity hospital run by nuns who treat you with cold efficiency and colder judgment. It's not a place for healing. It's a place for dying slowly while being reminded that you deserve it. They feed you watery gruel once a day. They pray loudly over your bed about the wages of sin, making sure you and everyone else in the ward knows that your suffering is divine justice manifest. When you moan in pain, they tell you to offer it up to God as penance. When you cry, they tell you tears won't wash away your sins. When you ask for more water, they remind you that Christ suffered thirst on the cross and never complained. You share a pallet with another dying woman. She has plague. You have pox. Neither of you will leave this room alive, and you both know it. You want to scream at the nuns, to tell them about Thomas and his promises, about the system that pushed you here, step by careful step, decision by impossible decision, about the men who faced no consequences while you paid for the sin of believing in love. But your throat is too raw from the disease. Your voice is gone, and they wouldn't listen anyway. They've already decided who you are, sinner, whore, cautionary tale. Nothing you say will change that. You die on a Tuesday in March, 26 years old, no family present. Jeffrey didn't respond to the message about your condition. No friends allowed in. The women from the brothel aren't welcome in Christian spaces. Just a nun marking your death in a ledger with a single word, meretrix, whore. They bury you in unconsecrated ground outside the city walls in a mass grave with the other undesirables. Suicides who couldn't be buried in holy ground. Criminals executed and damned, unbaptized infants, and fallen women like you. No headstone, no marker, no prayer. Just a pit in unhallowed earth and eventually another body thrown on top of yours. Centuries later, historians will write about medieval prostitution as if it were a profession women chose, an economic arrangement, a service industry. They'll discuss regulation and taxation with academic detachment. They'll analyze church courts and moral campaigns as if they were studying abstract systems rather than the machinery that ground real women into dust. Some will call it the oldest profession, as if you were born wanting this, as if girls emerge from the womb dreaming of selling their bodies to strangers, as if society didn't manufacture your fall and then profit from it. They won't mention Thomas and the thousands of men like him who faced no consequences, who made promises they never intended to keep, took what they wanted, and moved on to respectable lives while the women they destroyed spiraled downward. They won't mention the system that gave women one chance at respectability and infinite chances to fall. One mistake, sometimes not even a mistake, just bad luck or a man's lie. And the fall was permanent, irreversible, fatal. They won't mention how the same town that condemned you paid the bailiff who taxed your earnings, how they profited from the very sin they claimed to abhor, how the pious merchants who thundered about moral decay on Sunday visited the stews on Monday. They won't mention the daughters born in brothels, the diseases that killed young, the violence that was considered an occupational hazard, the women who disappeared and no one looked for them because who searches for a missing whore? Your story exists only in fragments, in court records that call you common prostitute without context or compassion, in church registers that mark your death without mercy, in the gap between the morality they preached and the economics they practiced, in tax records that prove you existed as a source of revenue, in burial records that prove you died unmourned, in the silence where your voice should be. In the end, you became exactly what they said you were, not because you chose it, but because they named it, shamed it, then built a system that made it your only option. And when you died young and unmourned and uncomforted, they blamed your sin. Never the cruelty of a system that created fallen women and then kicked them while they were down. Never the men who fell alongside you but landed on their feet. Never their own participation in the machinery of destruction. Just you, always you. The fallen woman who somehow deserved her fall, and the world moved on as if you never existed at all.